Life in Wires with Bill Fore. I just saw something in the news. Well, not particularly the news. I've seen an article that different scientific foundations have done studies and this and that. And this particular study dealt with, if you're familiar with the double slit experiment, quick little brief background on that. Quantum mechanics, all these scientists that are way smarter than you and I, found out through testing and observation that particles act as a particle when we're looking at it or measuring it or trying to measure it with a device, observing it. And they act as if you would be, accustomed to seeing them act as a normal particle. They shoot it at a piece of metal with two slits in it. So the particle can either bounce off, go through the left slit or the right slit. And when they watch it, it makes the pattern on the screen behind it, which catches the particles, of two slits. If you just fire a single proton, boom, 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 one after the other, it can either bounce off, go through the left one or the right one. So obviously, think of it as a paintball. The paint is going to splatter through the holes that they could go through. Scientists found out that when you're not looking at it, they go through both holes at the same time and every other area that it can go through. So when they looked at the paintball splatter, for lack of a better analogy, the paintball splatter from when they weren't looking, it looked as if it was a wave, where the particle would kind of look more fluid. It wouldn't have the rigidity of just one little bit going through A or B or bouncing off. It would kind of go through them all as if it was a wave rather than one thing. Fast forward to the article where they discussed this exact topic, and it brought me to think about the act of observation and those things that scientists now are proving and saying. So this isn't bullshit weirdo talk. Scientists are saying that when we're looking at reality, it behaves as if we've come to know it should behave, and it's there. But if we're not looking at it, it is not necessarily there. Or it's everywhere, or however you want to translate that. It's weird. Fast forward that to today's age, where people are obsessed, and they're told to be obsessed with documenting and recording themselves. In terms, you see this with the selfie camera on almost every phone that they have now. Instagram, where it's me, I, look at me. It's all documenting just pictures of yourself, where you're taking a camera, flipping it, looking at yourself, and taking a picture of that. Now, if you apply this new notion that I just brought up to the quantum mechanics and the double slit experiment, it could kind of start to sound like let's say we're the observer, and we're constantly observing ourselves and measuring ourselves by looking at our reflections in the telephone screen when we're looking at a selfie camera, or taking a picture of us and our group of friends in a selfie camera, this and that. Does that not sound like we're observing and measuring? That's what it is. That's what we're doing. So if we're made up of all the particles that the double slit experiment did its study on, we're made up of a conglomerate of all those particles, does that not kind of lend to the idea that the constant taking of pictures of oneself and videoing oneself and putting your video of your webinars, video casts, vlogs, are we not changing our individual reality to behave more normal and stringent and stale and stagnant and how we've come to know it should be? And are we eliminating our wave potential? It sounds like we might be. It sounds like the constant urging to look at yourself and document what you're doing. Does that not sound like the scientists that would observe during the double slit experiment? It did. And when you would observe those particles during the double slit experiment, did they not behave more, for lack of a better term, boring? They did what you thought they would do. When they didn't look and they didn't measure it and they didn't video it, etc., whichever machinery or objects they used, it behaved more magic, for lack of a better term. So are we not unintentionally taking magic and fantasy and options, are we not taking those out of our life by our incessant need or compulsion to document ourselves? It seems the act alone of just taking pictures of yourself constantly and looking at yourself constantly and not shutting your eyes, finding the real you, being quiet for a second, and just let that more childish-like magic back into your life. I mean, kids, when we were kids, speaking of myself, you'd look at everything more fantastical. Everything was different. Everything had a magic side to it. Everything had this majesty to it. It's no stretch to say that as we grow older, we kind of fall in line more and don't think along the lines of a child. And that kind of seems to be cemented now in the digital picture, Facebook, Instagram age, where we're kind of shutting ourselves off from options. And we're shutting ourselves off from being up to more things than we are limiting ourselves to by just constantly observing and measuring and looking. Take a seat, take a seat, take a seat. Sit down, sit down, sit down. Shut your goddamn eyes for 30 seconds. Inhale, exhale. Open your eyes. Feels nice. There's not always this burning desire, and it's not necessary to constantly be looking at yourself in a way where you're objectively measuring yourself. I personally think that that's putting a governor on your, for lack of a better term, powers, for your life, for your capability to manifest a reality that you like, that's more creative, that's more free form, that's more like a wave. Be like water making its way through cracks. Do not be assertive, but adjust to the object, and you shall find a way around or through it. If nothing within you stays rigid, outward things will disclose themselves. Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. If you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, and it becomes the bottle. You put it into a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now, water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend. Be water.